I'm James Vogley, CEO of Housing First Minnesota.
I'm Bill Burgess, Division President at Lennar, Minnesota.
Housing First Minnesota's mission is homeownership opportunities for all Minnesotans, and that takes us to the community in a variety of ways. Legislative process, through the political process, through connecting with Minnesotans through our home tours, through our charitable foundation. We're in the business of homeownership.
In Lennar, Minnesota, we're the #1 builder in the Twin Cities. We've been actively involved in the association for a few decades now and really feel it's an important part of our industry. How can we collectively represent the rights of our associates, our members, home buyers, future generation of buyers out there, and really what can we do to support the home building industry? And the best way to do that is through Housing First Minnesota. Well, we originally started working with Genius Monkey, I think about in 2012. Really, how do we find out, coming out of the great housing downturn, how do we find a different way of reaching our potential buyers out there? And we started with Genius Monkey back then, and we found it really to be so effective on what we were doing that we looked at it with the Housing First. How could we introduce that into Housing First to reach more people with the messaging of ownership and affordability, and eventually into the political spectrum that we had?
Yeah, so about a decade ago, we knew we needed a new strategy. We needed to connect with the public, with legislators, with elected officials in a new way. And that's where Genius Monkey joined our efforts and helped shape what we call an on-ramp into a new level of discussion. And really, we wanted to find a way for homeownership to stand out in the cluttered debate of the legislature, of elections, and just in the town square. There's a lot of clutter, and it was really difficult for us to get homeownership to become one of those top issues, and this really was the start of that a decade ago. Housing policy is among the most complex in all of public affairs, and I think Bill mentioned it. The regulatory roadblocks that exist today started out as good ideas, well-meaning ideas, and over the decades they added up, and the unintended consequences of them is that they were roadblocks to homeownership. So a decade ago, when we began to consider how Housing First could make a difference, we knew we had to articulate that in a new way. We needed to connect with constituents, we needed to connect with Minnesotans on a really, really complex issue. So Genius Monkey helped us drive that message in a new way. What's interesting about housing and home ownership is that it's a unifying issue. In politics today, almost everything has a stark division when you think about all the issues that people are talking about. And home ownership is very popular. Home ownership has got mid-90s popularity, and you can't get 90% of the people to agree that the sky is blue. So home ownership actually presents a unique challenge in that the political debate that happens, it usually divides along a line or two, and home ownership is actually a uniting issue. So it takes a different type of approach, it takes a different type of communications and digital strategy to reach a constituency, to reach the public who's used to seeing things packaged in a different way.
We've created that sphere of awareness of a problem. The next effort we have to do is how do we get people mobilized in the right direction of how do we make a difference? What do we do differently to stop the path we're on, to continue to make the American dream affordable for the next generation?
We were doing a series of disconnected strategies, relying primarily on legacy strategies, legacy media. By 2014, we had determined that wasn't enough and that we needed a new on-ramp. We needed to find a different way to connect, and we needed the repetition to make up for lost time. The town square where these discussions are being held were filled with organizations and causes that had 10, 20 years of head start against us, so we needed to make up for lost time. And I do feel like Genius Monkey and the strategies, the digital strategies, helped speed up the brand awareness. It helped us connect our legislative champions. We have a bipartisan cohort of legislative champions that care about home ownership. We were able to help raise awareness of their support for that issue faster than we normally would have.
Back then, when we were starting Housing First, the advocacy side of it, and we started early on. I mean, we were learning how to get into that space. And when we talked to people, the #1 thing they kept telling us over and over again is, let's do mail drops, right? Let's do brochures, let's do door hangers, right? And we tried that. And the problem comes in during the electoral cycle. That time, you'd go get your mailbox, you'd open it up, and every night you had 5 postcards in there from candidates. And what'd you do? You were just one of many. Whether they're the same size, different size, greater graphics or fonts, it was all 5 that you got. And we recognized we really weren't moving the needle there. And that's when we really thought about moving into the digital side with Genius Monkey. And when we began to do polling on it to figure out just what's most effective on creating name ID, name awareness of our candidates, we found by far our digital side was exponential. When we looked at over time, we saw name ID increasing dramatically, and it was through that digital presentation through Genius Monkey.
The awareness of candidates, their name ID, awareness of issues. And we'd see that in the analytics, we'd match that with the polling, there was a connection, undoubtedly. We also heard it on the ground. So, and when elections were completed and we would connect with folks who were involved in those elections, they saw these ads, they felt at the ground level like there was a greater presence than maybe they had seen previously. And we attribute that back to our digital strategies with Genius Monkey.
Yeah, I mean, from the candidate perspective, it's one thing to say you did a mail drop for them, and that happened one time during that cycle. But to say that you did a steady campaign for 4 to 6 weeks and everybody in their district was being served numerous times, they were hearing that week after week after week from people coming up and I said, I saw it online, I saw you online, I saw this online. The name ID, the repetition was so much compared to that one mail drop. The candidates definitely recognized it. We heard back from them, it was so much more impactful.
We saw immediate results in traffic, engagement, and brand awareness, and that's both in our public affairs, the advocacy, our home tour brand, and in our rebrand as Housing First Minnesota.
Through Genius Monkey, reaching that awareness out, getting that messaging out there that it was a good time to buy. Housing was a good investment. We saw a tremendous uptick in our analytics and it allowed to take a 65-year-old brand on the Parade of Homes, use Genius Monkey to introduce to a whole new group of people. And we saw that an increase in traffic, increase of awareness, increase in the idea of messaging of, yes, now is a good time to buy.
In politics, repetitions are necessary. It's necessary to connect with your target audience multiple times to deliver a message in a very cluttered environment. We were able to do that, but it wasn't enough just to do repetitions. We had to have a level of precision. We had to talk about homeownership to a unique cohort, a bipartisan cohort, and that makes us a bit unique in politics. We're talking to generations and layers of the public who are interested in homeownership, and that is a universal value. So that makes this a more challenging exercise. We're not simply looking to find someone that fits a very well-defined political box. We're looking for precision to find folks who might be motivated to think about homeownership as a key issue in a new way, and Genius Monkey helped us do that.
You know, one of the things that we saw that was so much differently with Genius Monkey versus other people that had offered a similar service was, Genius Monkey, we have the ability to go through multiple networks and multiple channels versus in others where you might be focused very much on one channel. And I always kind of equate that to the old way of advertising like a billboard. I'm going to place a billboard along one highway where I think my clientele might drive by there, where with Genius Monkey through the multiple networks and channels, it's like I'm placing a billboard on their car. It doesn't matter where they drive. They're always going to see what we're looking to serve to them because we're going to be everywhere where they're going to be. And then the ability just to target through the different keywords, whether it's home building or what they might be looking to or looking to move or being married, all these different attributes that we could put in there to help more specialize and tailor into what we're looking for just gives the greatest flexibility and greatest efficiency. And often what we see is the yielding from our dollar spent is often a multiple of what we find from others, whether it's 3, 4, 5x on there. There's such a value towards that and getting our messaging out. Not only being where people are and have the ability to see more people, but just doing it more effectively.
When we started, we heard, Bill and I heard, at least when you deliver mail, you know it gets to your target audience. And we heard that and we considered it. What we found is there's no question that our message got to our target audience multiple times. And multiple messages. It was like, Bill mentions, an incredibly efficient budget item in our overall strategy. We got performance that exceeded our other strategies in our digital work with Genius Monkey.
There's no doubt we knew the mail got there.
Yeah.
But we also knew that you were getting 6 or 7 other pieces of mail for a candidate at that time. Did you really pay attention to it? We know it got there, but did it get to their tabletop from their mailbox, their tabletop to the garbage right away? Did anybody pay attention? But we knew through the candidates, through the people in their district that were telling the candidates, we knew that when we ran an ad, we were hearing from multiple people. Geez, I saw your ad, I saw about this candidate. We were hearing feedback actively that they were seeing it. And not only seeing it once, but multiple times. So we knew it was being effective.
Well, we know it's effective when we have opponents to what we're trying to accomplish tell us, get your ad off my phone. That happens, and we looked at that as some mark of effectiveness, and that there were folks that we wanted to connect with who their ad kept getting served, so it was great referendum on that. As we evaluate the success of the campaign, we were over 80% bipartisan victory in our two largest efforts in election cycles. That's hard to match. And as we set out into this, you always want to measure success. You want to have efficiency. You want to accomplish the campaign goals. And we did that.
That's something that's measurable. I mean, it's often hard to find out how effective you're being, but on the advocacy side, it's pretty simple. Did you move the needle? Did you were able to find housing champions out there that you supported that they eventually won? And are you increasing that over time? And that's what we really found out by using Genius Monkey and having it be such an integral part, and really kind of transition away from when we started early on the traditional, door hangers or mail drops to go into a digital campaign. We just found out it was so much more effective that we just transitioned naturally to that.
A decade plus ago, we were talking about whether or not we should be more engaged in advocacy. How would we do it? What would it look like? So we were here. We were in the conversation. Today we drive the conversation. We drive it in Minnesota in a bipartisan way. We've excited and invited the community to join us, and today find ourselves among the leading national housing organizations that are pressing for homeownership opportunities.
Content that we're producing, the ideas that we're talking about, the messaging we're out there, whether that's in litigation or in front of committees down at the Capitol talking about the issues about housing affordability. We're seeing groups around the country now coming in and talking about that we want some of that information. How did you go about this? We're now being more as a thought leader as an organization across the country pushing housing affordability, the issues that are affecting housing today and how critical that is. And it's really frankly amazing that we went from an idea concept 10, 12 years ago and then elevating progressively in a very rapid fashion to becoming an industry leader across the country.
Yeah, that's probably one of our more rewarding and flattering requests is, hey, can we use your messaging? Can we deliver it locally in our state or in our community? The answer is always yes. We care about homeownership for everyone everywhere.
Years of doing the same thing over and over again, where we were advocating for changes in policy, elevating up issues at the Capitol that we need to have addressed. We had done like a lot of business groups, we had a lobbyist there, and what we found out is although the lobbyist would raise a level of awareness to our issues, when it came down to the final selections on the bill of what was included in, it just wasn't making the cut. I think James mentioned earlier, we were a top 10 or 15 issue. We weren't a top 5 issue. At the end, when the deals were being cut, housing was well cut out of it. Our issues were not being addressed, and after a couple legislative cycles, we recognized what we were doing wasn't effective. We had to try a different approach, and that's what we regrouped as an advocacy group and said, what do we need to do differently? Instead of relying on one lobbyist, we need to create a group of champions, of legislators down there that fully understand the importance of housing and are willing to support us. That we have the momentum not of one, but of many. And that's really where we reached out to try to find housing champions, support them. They began to get endorsements. We began winning through the election cycles. Like we talked about before, having an 80+% finding these housing champions. That grew into a bigger stable of people down at the Capitol willing to carry our message. We became more and more effective. Our messaging became larger and larger, and now we're a top 1, top 2, top 3 issue down at the state. When we talk about housing, there's an issue. We're seeing legislation happen. We're beginning to see change occur from what that is. And that's simply through that hard work and effort of 10 years ago, recognizing what we were doing wasn't working. We needed to try a different path. And by doing that, and then Genius Monkey helping us get that messaging out there in a more effective way, especially where candidates saw that, it made all the difference.
It's been a great relationship, and we felt especially empowered by the degree of data and understanding how our campaigns are performing. And I think that does differentiate Genius Monkey and the digital medium from some of the other tactics that we've mentioned. We're able in real time to evaluate how we're connecting, how our messages are being received. And so that was an incredibly valuable piece of it.
And I think just the different ways that we can selectively target groups as we begin to see what's effective and we look back. How do we begin to refine and fine tune the path that we're going down? Or is there anything else we can find as our messaging shifts a little bit? Are there other groups that we can target and try out to find out if it's being more effective on the new direction we're going as we evolve over time? And I think that's what's important, to find a partner who's willing to listen, willing to give you that feedback, and willing to adjust, and constantly let the data drive the decisions you want to make in the future and the direction you go.
This was game-changing for us. 10 years ago, we were looking for our pathway, and Genius Monkey helped us find it. And it's really, our success is a shared success with Genius Monkey and many other partners along the way. So we're just we're very happy with where we've come in the last decade, and now we're focused on the next decade and the work that's in front of us. It's getting to be a more complex world. The challenge of communicating clearly in the public affairs space has probably never been greater. My hunch is that it will continue to be a challenge. So for organizations like Housing First that are looking for a way to cut through, Genius Monkey is a partner that can help you do that, and can do it in a way that will be an on-ramp to a discussion that maybe you're not getting in a standard communication strategy.
Every advertising medium, everybody says that they can do it. Everybody says it's me too, we're basically the same. And whether that's through emailing or programmatical, or everybody claims they can do the same. But what we found out is not everything is created equal. And I would really suggest that you dive in and see the differences between what Genius Monkey has the ability to do on their programmatical versus others. Whether it's the range of networks, the range of targeting, whether it's analytic feedback, they're going to give you more information to drive and data to drive your decisions. Often today we see big providers of that say, provide us a budget, trust us, and we'll tell you at the end maybe we'll tell you, maybe we won't, on how your money was spent, and maybe you'll see the results or maybe you won't. With Genius Monkey, you don't have to worry about that. You're getting the data, you've got a partner that's willing to work with you, to understand that data, drive results, work with you to make a difference. And I think that's the key thing, is someone that you can trust moving forward. So not all are created equal, but you've got to be willing to take that chance to understand the difference and really dive into it. I highly recommend it. We saw that through Housing First. We've seen it through the last decade of being able to make a difference on, one, creating Housing First, that advocacy group, into something that's a world-class leading organization, but more importantly, driving a difference even on the standard of Parade. Here was a name tour that had been around 65 years, but when we engaged Genius Monkey, it took it up to a whole nother level as far as reaching people and getting the messaging out and creating a greater sphere of awareness and introducing people to a whole new generation.
The real-time analytics are a tremendous tool for any organization that's looking to shape public opinion on a ballot initiative, on an electoral campaign, on an issue campaign. But when the campaign is finished, our experience has been, we've been seen and we've been heard, and that's, I think, something in the advocacy space that's very important. It's very important to be able to, when the campaign settles, when election is settled, and people say, I saw you everywhere, and that's something we found in Genius Monkey.